Imagine waking up in a world where the Industrial Revolution crashed headfirst into a zombie apocalypse, and the only way to survive is to live inside giant armored trains or massive walled-off cities. It's kinda like if Attack on Titan had train autism. We start things off in the fortified station of Aragane, where we meet our protagonist, Ikoma. He's a steamboy mechanic with a chip on his shoulder the size of a locomotive. While everybody else is terrified of the Kabane, Ikoma is tired of running. He thinks anyone hiding behind walls is a coward, believing that true warriors should be out there taking the fight to the enemy. And he's not all talk. He's actually trying to do something about it, as we see him in his workshop, experimenting with a high-pressure nail gun, trying to punch a hole through a metal plate, because the zombies of this world, the Kabane, are fast, aggressive, and nearly impossible to kill, due to the fact that their hearts are protected in a cage which is comparable in strength to solid steel. He gives his gun a shot, and well, it fails. The nail bounces off and he leaves frustrated. He then trudges over to the railway yard to do his actual job, where his co-workers immediately start roasting him for being a hero wannabe. They tell him to just give up on his little toy gun and focus on fixing the trains. Ikoma ignores the haters though. While he's doing maintenance, his buddy Takumi suggests that maybe he just needs a little more gunpowder in the mix. And this gives Ikoma a brain blast, and he immediately starts to abandon his work and run back to his lab. But it turns out the VIPs have arrived, bringing the station to a standstill. Princess Iyame, basically the ruler of the station, is there to get her father's steam-powered rifle repaired. While the rest of the mechanics are busy simping over the princess, Ikoma is completely indifferent. He actually despises her family because he thinks their reliance on defensive walls is making humanity weak. Just as Ikoma is snatching the gun to inspect it, a worker bursts in with some bad news. A train is arriving way ahead of schedule. Ayame is confused because it wasn't due until tomorrow, but apparently a station on the route got absolutely obliterated by the Kabane, forcing an emergency detour. The train then rolls in and it's a complete mess. Railway workers then swarm the platform and doctors start meticulously examining every single person on the train, making sure they aren't hiding any bite marks. Ikoma finds the whole process annoying and bureaucratic, but Takumi reminds him that if one infected person gets in, it's game over for everyone. Ikoma is then assigned to clean the train, which is covered in blood and guts. While he's scrubbing away, he spots some leftover Kabane flesh stuck to the hull, and instead of being grossed out or reporting it like a normal person, he gets excited. He ignores his friend's advice about safety protocols and scrapes the sample into his bag for research, because rules don't apply to men of science. As the passengers disembark, a mysterious girl steps off the train, and Ikoma is momentarily struck speechless, because she looks completely different to everybody else that came off the train. A guard then rushes over to stop her, demanding that she undergo the strip search like everybody else. But the girl is completely unfazed and playfully whacks the guard with a toy she's holding, mocking him for being so uptight. The bitch boy guard, whose ego is now bruised, prepares to use force, but Iyame and her father intervene just in time. They declare that the girl is their guest and she's given the VIP pass to skip the line. Suddenly, chaos erupts on the platform. A man bolts from the inspection line and the doctors start shouting that he is infected. The soldiers start firing warning shots, sending him sprawling to the ground, and the man starts pleading for his life, swearing that he's innocent and just has a rash. But the soldiers aren't taking any chances. They ready their guns to execute him right there. Ikoma decides that this is his moment to intervene and jumps in, reminding them that the protocol requires suspected carriers to be quarantined for 3 days to see if they turn. But the guards aren't in the mood for a lecture from a mechanic, so they proceed to beat the crap out of him. During the scuffle, the bag of zombie flesh that Ikoma collected earlier falls out of his pockets, which looks incredibly suspicious, and everybody starts freaking out, thinking Ikoma is also infected or harboring the virus. While everyone is distracted by Ikoma getting beat up, the fleeing man makes a desperate dash for freedom. The soldiers then panic and light him up with their steam guns. He drops dead instantly, and upon closer inspection, they realize, oops, he wasn't actually infected. He was just a scared guy with a rash. The soldiers, unfazed by the fact that they just murdered an innocent civilian, drag the corpse away like it's garbage day. Ikoma is absolutely livid. He screams at them, asking if they've lost their humanity completely, and Iyame's father looks down at him with pure disdain, basically telling him that a grease monkey like himself has no right to question the warriors of this society. Undeterred, Ikoma yells that his weapon is almost finished and he's going to change everything. Before he can finish his speech though, Ayame's bodyguard, a stoic samurai named Kurisu, knocks him out cold. They then throw him in jail to cool off. Later that night, Ikoma is sitting in his cell when that unique girl from earlier comes to visit him. She asks him how Ikoma knew that the man wasn't infected, and he admits that he didn't know for sure, but he couldn't just stand there and let someone die without proof. He then goes on a rant about how fear is turning everyone into monsters who have lost their pride. Meanwhile, things are about to go from bad to worse. Another train is approaching the city gates, and the guards are expecting a routine entry, but they notice the train isn't slowing down at all. And as it gets closer, they realize the horrifying truth, that the crew is dead and the train is overrun by Kabaneri. Panic then sets in immediately, and the guards scramble to raise the drawbridge and seal the gates. But it's way too late. The train is going too fast and derails, crashing into the city with a cataclysmic explosion that destroys the walls. From the wreckage, hundreds of glowing, iron-hearted zombies then swarm out, unleashing absolute chaos onto the city. In the confusion, Ikoma's jailer flees, leaving him locked up. But Ikoma isn't about to die in a cage. Picking the lock to his cell, he bolts straight to his house. Not to escape, but to get his gun, as he's been waiting for a live test subject, and tonight is the night. While the city burns, the VIPs, including Ayame's father, are busy securing their own escape on the only functional train left, leaving the civilians to fend for themselves. As Ikoma makes his way to his shed, he starts setting up a trap, slashing his own arm to leave a trail of blood, luring a Kabaneri towards him. One of them then takes the bait and stumbles into the shed where Ikoma is waiting with his upgraded piercing gun. However, the zombie is smarter than it looks and crashes down from the roof instead of using the door. Ikoma gets tackled, but he manages to kick the thing off and lines up a shot. As he pulls the trigger, the pressurized nail blasts straight through the iron cage of the zombie's heart, killing it instantly. It's a massive victory, and he actually did it. But before he can pop the champagne, he feels a searing pain in his arm. He looks down and realizes that he was bitten during the struggle, and the virus is already spreading, with his veins now glowing in that ominous orange color. Most people would just give up and die here, but Ikoma is built differently. He remembers a theory that the virus only travels through the blood to the brain, so he decides to do something completely insane. He grabs some metal brackets and bolts them around his shoulder to cut off circulation. Then, he puts a noose around his neck attached to a machine and starts cranking it, literally choking himself out to stop the blood flow to his head. He's screaming while fighting the urge to turn into a monster, fueled purely by the memory of his sister dying 5 years ago, and his vow to never be weak again. The virus then surges, but the lack of oxygen halts it. It then pulses for a few seconds, but he doesn't turn, and the orange glow then begins to retreat. He then passes out from the exertion. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl Mume is making her way through the city, encountering a zombie, and instead of running, she literally waits for it to get close. Then with a swift kick, she decapitates it cleanly. And we see her sandals have some hidden blades on the bottom. She's not stuck in here with them, they're stuck in here with her. Ikoma regains consciousness after having a nightmare about his sister, and after checking his body, he is absolutely pumped to discover that he didn't turn into a Kabaneri. His crazy plan to strangle the virus out of his system actually worked. Takumi then arrives shortly after, spotting the remains of the zombie in the room. Ikoma tells him that the piercing cannon was a complete success, and the two of them share a genuine moment of excitement over the weapon actually working. However, Takumi asks if he was hurt in the testing of the weapon, and Ikoma just casually says, "Oh yeah, it did bite me," causing Takumi to get a little bit worried. But Ikoma says, nah, it's all chill, cause I stopped it at the neck. We then see Mume making her way into a shelter, when she pulls out a little device and wonders if she can make it to the train in time before it evacuates, as it leaves in 30 minutes. Elsewhere in the city, things are going from bad to worse, as the horde of Kabaneri is growing larger by the second, and we see a section of a defensive position where Ayame and the others are held up. One of the men in the group says they can't stay around here much longer waiting for Ayame's father to signal for them, so they need to get going now. But Ayame's bodyguard, Kurisu, says that Ayame is in charge when her father is absent. Mume then shows up in a new outfit and tells them to stop their bickering. The man gets offended by this and tries to put her in her place, but he way underestimates her ability as she folds him instantly. She then asks if anyone here knows how to operate one of them big-ass trains, and we see a trainee engineer named Yukina say that she can do it. Mume then says that she will clear a path forward, so everyone just needs to follow behind her, and with that, she does some sick flips and lands straight in the middle of the horde. She checks her weapons and says she's aiming for about 100 seconds, and then starts her little device. As a zombie lunges at her from behind, she spins and slashes its head clean off with a blade. The zombies, now seemingly enraged, begin to chase after her, clearing a path for the civilians to make a run for the armored train. Mume leads the undead conga line towards the city center, utilizing the terrain to her advantage, and we see that her agility is looking pretty superhuman, and combined with her specialized steam weapons, she dispatches them with ease, never taking a single hit, although it does take her 110 seconds to beat them all. Elsewhere, Ikoma and Takumi finally make it to the train station, but their relief is short-lived as there are guards blocking the entry, demanding that everyone strip down to prove they haven't been bitten. Ikoma, knowing full well he has a massive bite mark on his body, is about to comply and just explain what happened to him, and likely get himself shot in the process. But Takumi stops him, worried that they won't understand. Just then, 2 zombies break through the perimeter and everyone begins to panic. Ikoma sees this as a perfect opportunity to show off his new gat. He readies his piercing gun, but before he can even pull the trigger, Mume drops in and swiftly takes care of the threat herself. Ikoma recognizes her as the girl from earlier, and she recognizes him too. Ikoma points out that she seems significantly stronger than a normal person, and she suddenly notices something, as she gets up close and starts sniffing him. She cheekily says that he isn't normal either, and the rest of the civilians then arrive nearby, having had a path cleared by Mume. Kurisu then approaches Ikoma and raises his gun towards him, accusing him of being a Kabane, but Mume intervenes, asserting that Ikoma definitely isn't a Kabane. Taking her word for it, everyone boards the massive armored train known as the Iron Fortress. We then see Ayame use her master key to fire up the engine, and Mume walks through, insults Ayame a bit, and then heads off to the corner, raising her cloak to have a little sleep. Ayame says, yeah, I suppose that's fair, as she'd be tired from all the fighting. But inside Mume's coat, we see the glowing veins like that of a Kabane. The crew struggles to get the massive train moving as more hordes of zombies begin to surge towards the train station, forcing a hurried and chaotic departure. The guards attempt to hold the line with their steam rifles, but the undead are relentless and begin crashing into the sides of the now slowly moving train. Inside, people are worried about what's going to happen, and we see a steam pipe burst about to crush a family. Ikoma, who walks past at the right moment, casually catches it and puts it back in place with barely any reaction. But when Takumi bumps into it, he gets burnt by its incredible heat, and he begins to look suspiciously at Ikoma. A zombie then begins to squeeze through a gap in the door outside, and panic begins to spread throughout the carriage. Ikoma rushes forward, finally getting the chance to showcase his piercing gun to everyone. He blasts the zombie at point-blank range and hurls its body off the train. He turns around triumphant, explaining how they finally have a way to fight back against the Kabane. But he sees the terrified faces of everyone on board, and he looks down at his own iron heart. Ikoma, panicking, tries to reassure everyone that he stopped the virus from reaching his brain and that he is still in control. But that's a bit of a hard sell when your chest is literally glowing like a furnace. And we see even Takumi recoil in terror. Kurisu then arrives, alerted to the commotion by a passenger, and while Ikoma tries to explain the science behind why he survived the bite, Kurisu has just been itching for the chance, and shoots him point-blank range, knocking him out of the door and off the train. He orders his men to seal the door, leaving Ikoma for dead, and we see zombies begin to encircle Ikoma as he slips into unconsciousness, with Takumi calling out for him. Meanwhile, up in the control room, a crew member urgently calls for Kurisu as there's a problem on the tracks up ahead. Kurisu seems bothered about having to check this for himself, but when he climbs out to assess the situation, he spots a familiar face among the undead. Ayame then makes her way up too, demanding to know what's going on, and we see that her father is now a part of the horde. Ayame is heartbroken, and Kurisu closes the hatch, telling her that it wasn't actually her father, it was simply a Kabane, as he orders the train to go full speed ahead. They soon arrive at the gate to leave the city, but it seems the mechanism on the train which lowers the drawbridge is jammed, and we see that a zombie arm is lodged in the gears. The horde of Kabane then catches up to the train and starts throwing themselves at it, damaging the coolant reservoir. With no other solution, Kurisu states that he's going out there to use the manual lever to lower the bridge himself. Despite warnings from his men, he declares that as a samurai, it is his duty to lay down his life for others. However, before he can make his sacrifice, a report comes in that there's a figure outside fighting the zombies, and we see that it's Ikoma. He survived the shot, regained his senses, and is now battling his way towards the train. Inside, Ayame says they need to help him, but everyone else says that as soon as they open the doors, they'll be overrun. We then hear Ikoma thinking to himself about his motivation, and it isn't heroism. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He's doing this just to show the people inside the train, the ones who cast him aside, that the man they left to die is the one who saved them. He wants them to carry that guilt with them for the rest of their lives. And fueled purely by spite, Ikoma runs into the lever and manages to lower the bridge. As the train passes him, Ikoma breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by the fact that despite saving them, they aren't going to let him back on. Takumi, refusing to let his friend die a second time, throws a rescue hook out to him, but the other passengers try to stop him and begin fighting for the rope. Ikoma, too caught up in his feelings, fails to notice the rope sent his way and is resigned to his fate. At that moment, Mume arrives, attaches the rope to him and tells Takumi to pull him in. They pull Ikoma aboard, and once he's on deck, he starts shouting that saving a zombie like him is unnecessary and stupid. Mume tells him to shut up and that the damage is already done now, when Kurisu and his soldiers approach with guns drawn. Kurisu throws down a little suicide satchel and demands that Ikoma die by his own hand if there is even a trace of humanity left in him. But before the two men can kill each other, Mume steps in between them, stating that Ikoma is neither a zombie nor a human. And to prove her point, she removes her jacket, revealing a glowing, iron-caged heart on her own back. She says they are something else entirely. They are Kabaneri, neither human nor zombie, but something in between.